Thanks for checking in the Pivoting to Web3 podcast. Go to pivotingtoweb3podcast.com to download and listen, or Web3 Game Plan to check out the videos. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Pivoting to Web3 podcast. And today we have Benjamin Bowman. And Benjamin is the founder of StrataShield AI and a pioneering figure in the artificial intelligence space. Backed by over 2 decades of technological expertise, his journey began with a transformative 13-year tenure as an IT leader at a global printing corporation where he led pivotal advancements in manufacturing technologies and process management. But today, he is the head of StrataShield AI. He translates this extensive tech experience into developing AI solutions that are both practical and ethical. And ethical is big with me, ensuring businesses can effectively harness AI. So you all pay attention today, because before he started his business, Benjamin served as the primary technical speaker for Comcast Business Indirect Channel for nearly 3 years, engaging audiences of over 100 events and participating in more than 50 expert panels on various technologies. He hosts his own video series, AI Insights, The Executive Brief, and is frequent guest on other technology-focused podcasts. Known for his engaging and unique presentation style, Benjamin excels in demystifying complex technical topics, making them accessible and relevant to a broad audience. So now Benjamin and I, we have been going back and forth, round and round. I'm going to tell it. And I was really sitting up here showing my age, messing up some appointments here and there. I would have brought this gentleman to you all sooner, because I really think he's going to give us some unique insights on what is happening with AI and really how to best utilize it in your business from the operational standpoint. For those of you who have met me, talked to me, or even know my background, I'm big on systems. I'm big on legacy 2.0 systems, but really transitioning them into the future, emerging technologies. This is the man with the plan, and we're going to introduce Benjamin Bowman. So Benjamin, say hello to your audience and ours. Hello, hello.
Hey everyone, thank you, Donna. Jumped in there a little too soon, but we got there. Thank you so much for the great introduction. I'm so excited to have this conversation, and obviously with you and your years of experience, I think it's going to be a fun collaborative effort here.
It's more than fun. It's going to be informative. It's going to be engaging and very educational. So tell me, you seem to have a background in the technological field that's really 20 years of experience. I mean, I can't even really point to that specifically in just in that system engineering. You go further into that space than I do. Explain to us what you've done in the past and how you ended up starting StrataShield AI and what it's going to do for the future.
Sure. So first of all, I think my story says that anyone can actually end up being an engineer, end up being a technical person. When I was in high school and throughout school, I wasn't a really great student, and I never even owned a computer. And one day I was just reading, I was working at Denny's, and I was like, what? I need to do something different. And I saw the MCSE come out. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to go get my MCSE without ever owning a computer. And I quickly found out I was very hands-on. Before that, funny enough, I mean, I'd failed my ACT. I was like a C student. I mean, really trying, but just going to get it. But I found my way of learning was very different. And that's applicable to AI too. I'm excited that maybe we jump into that a little bit for like neurodiversity and different ways of learning.
Oh, yes, I want to know.
Yes, so I ended up working for this international printing company, and yeah, I wrote a lot of processes into manufacturing and really into automation and into flow of the printing process. Some of the applications I wrote were used by the NFL and by other large organizations, and I even wrote one that was used during the Pro Bowl for tracking ads and print throughout the Pro Bowl. So I did a lot of very cool stuff with that. And I eventually wanted to get into something different. So I wanted to be more in a consultative and sales role, not just a technical role,
Right.
because I saw the salespeople were having all the fun, right? So
Yeah, we did.
you know, that's how it is. So I was like, I want to do sales. So I ended up going into sales for a bit. And my technical background with my communication skills ended up still dragging me back into engineering because there's a huge need for engineers with a larger EQ than an IQ. And that's something I always talk about as well. And that's so important in the technical industry, is that we have emotional intelligence and we're able to communicate with people and communicate with businesses, which then led me into just overall my career path into back and forth sales and engineering and just the combination. Well, fast forward a little bit, and one of the businesses I was working for had a heavy riff. We're all used to that now. And I like to say they paid me handsomely to not work for them anymore.
Mhm.
So it catapulted my business. I've always wanted to start a business, and I wanted to do something unique in AI. And we can talk about that. Maybe you might have some more questions about it, but I decided to start StrataShield AI with a really unique purpose as far as demystifying all this vaporware that's out there and finding out what is real, what can a business really do with AI, what is the approach that needs to be taken, and help really executives who are kind of grappling with this AI decision and where to go with it and getting pressure. Kind of, Donnie, do you remember the cloud? Like all the cloud nonsense?
Right. Yes, I
Yeah.
do. Definitely.
Absolutely, you do. It's the same kind of thing right now. Everyone wants to be on AI, but they don't know what that means. And when we were dealing with the cloud, I remember people, are we on the cloud? It's like, you don't even know what the cloud means. I barely know what it means. Like, calm down.
So at the end of the day, you're in a space right now where I'm really glad to have you here, because there are a lot of people, a lot of CTOs, a lot of CMOs, just a lot of people in the C-suite, and just regular folks who are coaching, consulting, authors, and everyday businesses that need to make the adjustment. They're not really sure where. You mentioned the different types of learning. Let's start there with AI. What are the differences within AI for those of us that are listening and listening with ears of, I don't even understand what AI is. And meantime, there's differences in AI. Can you give us a quick snapshot on what the differences in learning are?
Yeah, great question. And I think the first thing that we have to realize, and I think we should realize, is that when we talk about AI, we're talking about this in a framework, right? It's not AI in the way of Terminators, and it's not AI in the way of true artificial intelligence yet, meaning a machine like human with advanced learning and advanced cognition and everything like that. What we're talking about is a framework that's been around for quite some time that is now getting very popular. And so I think the first thing to understand is really the framework and understanding terms like machine learning, big data, neural networks, all these things that, again, these have been used for decades. In fact, AI was first came around in the 1930s, 1940s by Alan Turing, who came up with the Turing effect, which is the way of telling if AI could pass as human. So I think making sure that we're addressing it as a framework, and then also understanding that there are different models and there's different ways of going about implementing AI. And AI is not for everybody. AI is not for every business. There's unique use cases where it's going to fit in right now, and we're going to see the expansion. But I'll give you a great example. You have a very good background in data, obviously, in supply chain analytics and things like that. A lot of people are just using large language models right now, which are great at deciphering language and looking through language. But there's other models, like a large graphical model, that is very good at tabular, time-stamped, and numeric data. So we need to make sure that we're using the right AI in the right case, and also not just jumping on the bandwagon for the sake of jumping on the bandwagon. I always tell businesses, if we can't have a distinct ROI, let's not do it. I mean, that's the whole point of AI is efficiency and improving capability. So why not be able to show an ROI?
So at the end of the day, you have businesses out there that are either in retail, some are in manufacturing, some are in supply chain, and they have different processes and systems in their businesses. How does a business know if they fit into the best use case areas, or what are the industries or arenas that you think it's really good to utilize AI, and in what way specifically, if you could give us some examples?
Yeah, I love this. And I love that supply chain and retail and actually any business. And here's why, because at the base of a good AI implementation, it's around the data. And I like to say data is the lifeblood of AI. And really, if we think about the direction businesses have gone over the last 10 years, data is the lifeblood of a business. the more data a business has, the more information a business has, the more decisions and sound decisions they can make. So the approach I take is first, let's look at your data. Let's look at your data lakes. Is it clean? Are they talking? Are you using data integration where it's kind of clunky and just kind of trying to fit together?
Mhm.
Or are we using data collaboration where we're collaborating databases through accounting, through marketing, through sales, through supply chain, through production, all these different areas? And it's very important that the data is clean and the data is usable, because if not, your AI is going to be messy and clunky, or you're going to be using, again, more disparate systems. And what businesses need to use more disparate systems? So really, when you're looking at, is AI good for me? It's, do I have data, or do I not know what to do with my data?
Mhm.
And then we get into predictive, and I like to say reactive and proactive analytics. Does that make sense?
Wow.
So everyone's looking at reactive right now, but now we have the ability to go into proactive or predictive analytics with that data. And I think it just kind of, the AI conversation snowballs, but it really starts at the data.
So when you're looking at the data, I guess you need to decide which direction you want to go. What are you really looking for? Are you interested in what's happening with your customers and your clients or your stakeholders in that arena and personalization? Or you're looking at improving efficiencies and costs and making money in less time and deliverables? What are some of what are some of the real tangibles that someone that is listening that has a business that would know? I need to really bring in a consultant. I need a strategist in AI. I fit this type of profile. What are the profiles that you would suggest for those that are listening to move forward in the AI space or contact Stratashield?
Sure. So the first one is, if you don't know what to do with your data. So let's say you have a lot of data, but you don't feel like you're getting insights from the data, and that could be reactive. Reactive isn't negative in this case. Reactive can still be good. So reacting to analytics or proactive analytics from your data, that is one sign. And that's a conversation I have a lot. I was talking to a call center the other day, and they have all this data from all these calls, but yet whenever they get a call, their call center employees are still answering them and not having any kind of usage with the data collected from past calls to be able to answer common questions. And so I'm working on compiling these common questions so that using a generative AI, as someone calls in and says, hey, I have a question about XYZ, the person can type it in and it'll pull up common ways that fixed it, common conversations they've had, and going through the data. So fixing the data is huge. If you look at supply chain and retail, 25% of revenue is lost globally and annually due to unstocked data or unstocked product. So that's another thing that I think is really big, is when you get into supply chain and retail, is being able to say, look at different anomalies and external, not just internal factors, but external and internal factors that are impacting. That could be weather, it could be sporting events, it could be so many different things, but then looking at your information as well. And you get this if you were in the airline and travel industry.
Oh, I
Think
got a
about-
question for you once you said that. Go ahead.
I figure, I mean, well,
Go ahead.
okay, so we'll jump into that. So I won't steal your thunder there,
Oh,
because
no,
there's a
no,
lot
no,
of
no.
application to that. If you think about all the different things that can happen, and I know myself being a road warrior. I got that. Let's try it again. A road warrior. Look at that. I'm saying
Yeah.
words. So for 3 years, I actually, how many delays was I on? How many things impacted my travel? How much stuff went on? So that's one thing. And here's one other point I want to make aside from the data: secure and ethical AI implementation in your company. If you're worried about, it could be ghost AI or AI that you don't know what's going on, AI that's being used in your environment that you don't know, you should probably talk to me as well, because a lot of employees are using AI applications and they might be putting customer proprietary information into the AI that might be visible. So if you're concerned about usage of AI in your company, providing a secure AI framework for generative AI for efficiencies, that's another one. So I'll stop there. I know that was a lot, but
Well, yeah, that's a lot. So let's start with the most recent so I can remember that first. Okay. So the AI and security. I think I had another guest that mentioned AI in a particular space that would be more secure than the AI is out there. Is that what you're talking about as you're working with AI, or whatever I'm inputting about me, however I'm framing it in my profile, or whatever I'm feeding it or getting out from it, it's still protected in a secure space? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at if let's say ChatGPT or OpenAI for
Mm-hmm.
example.
Mm-hmm.
It stores it in a database for, I think, 30 days. It might be longer. So that means anything that your employees put into GPT or Bard or Gemini or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
if that system was hacked or compromised, you would have your information compromised. It doesn't mean it's feeding directly out, but there is a vulnerability there. So yeah, that's exactly what I mean is if you don't provide your employees with a secure AI implementation, which we can do, then the chances are they want to be more efficient. They want to be better at their jobs. They want to
Mm-hmm.
get done sooner. So they're going to be using those systems. And I can do what we do is either provide them with a secure system or both provide them with a secure system and also monitor generative AI traffic so we can redact maybe information that's being put into it that shouldn't be put into it. We can pull it out and block it and do a little bit more with it than just offer it. We also want to say, okay, now that you're using secure, let's make sure that we're not still putting in information that you shouldn't be putting in.
So now you're walking into another arena, which I didn't anticipate. Sounds like you're also in the cybersecurity space. Are you in that space, or are you in a similar space, or what is the difference between the two?
So yes, overall, I would consider myself a technology strategist. So a lot of times cybersecurity comes up, and I've seen this for about 3 years where I mean, you remember when technology was very disparate? So you had your phone
Mhm.
system, which was
Mhm.
very separate from
Right,
your data, and you
right,
had your servers, which were very separate from
right.
everything else.
Mhm.
Now, and I know I'm using a visual of hands, but now all of our systems and all of our technological ecosystem is really talking together. So if I'm going to go in and I'm going to have a conversation about AI and the
Mhm.
framework of AI in your business, well, then I better understand how that's going to impact all the other technologies in your business and also be able to help you with those technologies if you need help. So if it's cybersecurity, voice and call center, UCaaS, CCaaS, SD-WAN, SASE, whatever it is, I've really tried to make myself a practitioner at technology and understanding what is real, what is relevant, and how does all this play together? Does it play well or not?
So in some ways it's separate, but in some ways you're together. You're not really siloed. You're still integrated, and everything is still moving forward. So as you're in that space, and based on what you've explained to me, it sounds like the data is very important. Let's go back to the airline industry or the
Yeah.
call centers and everything you were talking about. Because I spent a lot of my life in those call center places and spaces. So you have, on one end, you may have your calls coming in, your length of call, your talk time, your time in between time, and then you have the telephony that was monitoring the calls, and you got certain instances, what time is this flight, the delays, there's a certain frequency, a certain pattern, or you may have a schedule change, but you have certain types of calls coming in certain gates.
Yes.
All that information, you can utilize the AI, streamline it, maximize it, minimize it so people can make money, but then also maybe tie it into the customer service department who gets all the complaints, the finalities, the outcomes, and you could tie all that in from the retention. You could tie all of that in on AI now. What's
Yeah.
going to
And
happen, if it's going to happen, and if you do this, this is the outcome. I know I kind of dig deep with that and went kind of wide, but I'm kind of curious
well,
on how far can you
can
go?
it go? Yeah. And I love that you went wide with that because that's exactly, especially in a call center environment. I mean, you think of the AI use cases in call center and it's just, it's staggering. So you're spot on first with the data. What do you do with the data? And again, I talk about reactive and proactive data analytics. So first is reacting to the data and providing information, maybe from a customer experience standpoint, from a travel standpoint, uh, getting that data and then providing it with, okay, this is what happened. Now let's look at the data of as how it impacted us. That's a reactive, right? But now let's start looking at what happened and then look at weather patterns throughout history. Look at again, travel and from events throughout. I live in Las Vegas, right? So there's a lot of events here that impact weather patterns and traffic. Let's look at events and let's start predicting. Now let's get into the proactive analytics of it and start predicting what is possibly going to be happening on June 3rd, most likely. Now, you're not going to pinpoint an exact, but you're going to get better predictive analytics. The next thing that you can do with AI, and conversational AI is phenomenal in call centers right now, because I have examples of voice recordings that you can't tell the difference, that you're actually speaking to a non-human. They're answering objections. They're talking through like, hey, we're going to need your card. And they're talking through like, well, why do I have to give my card? And they're giving these non-emotional responses of like, they don't get nervous and why they need the card. And so what you can do as well is you can use that data to say, what is the most common question or complaint that our call center employees are getting? And now we know that. Now let's repurpose conversational AI and an AI agent to be able to take those calls so that our human agents can take the more complex calls and not be just dragged down with the inundation of all these petty little calls that an AI bot could handle. Again, AI is not for the complex. Let's repurpose. I heard reimagine. Do we like reimagine more than repurpose? But let's repurpose our employees, not eliminate them.
I like the way you said the petty little call. It gave me a flashback. You know, I know some of the agents out there is like, yeah, that's what we think for real. But
That's
anyways, anyway, some of those petty little calls. What time is his flight leaving? 2:00. Then
Yeah.
you just call.
Exactly. Can you imagine eliminating those from when you were doing that? How ridiculous some of the calls were?
Systems came in, but you still get those calls, so they say. So let's move into, because I really want to be respectful of your time and everyone else's. There's so much to talk about right here.
Yeah.
You also mentioned with the AI, the ethics, the nuances, and how does that all tie in with what you do and how you strategize with the governance issues, the biases that are out there, and still be ethical going forward? How does that tie into what you do as a company? I mean, you sound like a company that's got it all. I've talked to so many other companies where they're doing pieces and bits of it, but it seems like you've really got a great company where you're looking at it from all different angles and all dimensions, and you can do a deep dive and you can go wide. You got depth and you have breadth. So I'm curious to know, a lot of the feedback from the audience has concerns around the nuances of different cultures, ethics, bias. How does that play into what you do and how you do, and how should businesses handle some of the issues that we see today? How do we manage this so it's still okay?
That's a great question. That's a huge question, right? Because we could get into the philosophical conversation, the psychology of it. And that's one of the things I like about AI. And maybe I'll jump a little bit into philosophy because I have an interesting point with the ethics point of that. But first of all, what I do is I've been really diligent about finding out what is real out there, what can happen. I don't want to sell vaporware. And that's very common right now. Vaporware.
What is vaporware? Explain that to somebody.
Sure. So vaporware is I sell you a solution that will never work and will never do what it says it does. It's basically false advertising of a product. And you see that a lot, especially in the marketing aspect, right? Like get 1,000 viewers, get this, make $1 million with AI. This kind of stuff is vaporware. And even in businesses, a lot of companies are hiring people to do custom AI. And it's not a good application and a good fit. So what I first want to do is make sure that if I do a discovery and scoping with a business, that I know what is possible, if you want to call it the art of the possible, but I know what's possible and is it real and is it tangible? And that's the first thing that I want to eliminate is I don't want to ever have a company go in and try to implement an AI solution, again, for the sake of implementing AI and not get the results that they want. So again, that's one thing that I've developed my ecosystem, and I've developed I believe one of the largest AI ecosystems that's out there right now that can get stuff done and do it. Now, when you get into biases and you get into how AI reacts and might say certain things, it's interesting because I notice that AI is very conformational to what we put into it, especially generative AI. So if I'm in GPT, it's going to tell me what I want to hear, and it's going to let me lead it into what I'm saying. So first, if you're getting bias from your AI, it's probably because you're putting bias a lot into your AI a lot of times, right? And then there is the bias of it won't answer some questions. So you ask it a question and it's not going to answer it. So it's an interesting point. And this is one of the things that I actually started thinking about between human error and machine error. And I was thinking about self-driving cars. Follow me. This is a really interesting
Okay,
thing.
I'm gonna follow you on this.
Okay, this is interesting. So if you had self-driving cars that prevented 50% of deaths or traffic fatalities, it would be an amazing thing. But every time a self-driving car and an AI vehicle crashes and causes a human death, there's outrage, just like, see, it shouldn't have happened. And so my question is AI traffic fatality still going to be more accepted? Sorry, are human traffic fatalities going to be more accepted than AI traffic fatalities?
Okay.
So let's say again, if there's this human element of us saying, okay, well, yeah, they weren't paying attention, they just ran someone off the road, but I could see that could happen to me, so I don't want to judge them. But this AI element scares a lot of humans, right? From an ethical standpoint. So do we embrace it, even though it could save lives, but it takes away human control, or do we just say, no, we're just going to have you see where I'm going with that? It's an interesting thought, and that goes into the philosophy of it. But the rabbit holes we could go on this are amazing. But that's one I was thinking of from a standpoint is I heard it every time a Tesla car crashes and there's a death. I mean, there's outrage. Everyone's freaking out, but yet there's thousands and thousands of traffic deaths a day, if or a week. What if we could eliminate that? What if we could eliminate drunk driving? But now we're taking control from the human. Is that okay? I don't know.
Interesting thought. Interesting scenario as well on how to look at that and the approach. So let me ask you this. What has happened when you worked with a company? Have you had any situations where it went better than you expected? And if so, what happened? What is there anything that really happened where you didn't expect it to be that good? Or, maybe I should do the flip side before we do the good side. Is there something that you went in on and it went a little bit worse than what you thought it would, or something happened, it went downhill, spiraled out of control, and you're like, oh my God, how do I fix this? I didn't expect that, or something where you raised an eyebrow and like, I didn't expect it to go that way. It could be good or bad, whichever you'd like to share.
Sure. And I'm not going to do total politician answer on this, but it's interesting when you're talking about AI because you do see both of them. But I learned quickly as I was starting to have the conversations not to go in with expectations because of what you were talking about. And AI is such a moving target right now. And in fact, where we're at now and 1 year from now, we're going to be having totally different conversations. But I can think of a couple situations where I've gone in and I'd say the worst thing is this overhyped expectation of what AI can do. And people are like, we're going to land on the moon, right? And you're like, well, we're probably not. Let's calm down. Let's pump our brakes a bit. But I think that's the biggest one that I really run into is where they have this idea for an AI system and it might be too AI. So they want too much reactive, conscious, or let's call it conscious reaction of the AI. And it's just not there yet. It'll be there. But I'll say expectations are one thing that you go into a lot. And the other thing I'll say from a good standpoint is because I approach the AI conversation from the business, and I've always believed in people, processes, and then technology. Technology is the last thing I want to talk about, is you never know where, that's what I love about this, is you never know where the use case is going to be. You never know where you're going to land, and you never know what is actually going to happen throughout the conversation. But once you start understanding the business, how they use their data, how they're profitable, how they reach their EBITDA goals or their other ROI goals and everything like that, then you start to see like, okay, this is where AI could be applicable. And it could be from calls, it could be from the data, it could be a custom application for your CRM because the current CRM isn't working. It just goes in every single direction. So I will say that every conversation I have, at the end, I'm surprised because you just don't know.
Are there businesses that you think should wait until we get into another growth period with a different quality of AI as advancements take place, maybe in 6 months or a year? Is there any reason for someone to say, I'm just going to wait and see what happens? I'm just going to wait and see how it develops? Or are there any industries or businesses or use cases where you could say, like, this is a little premature for them? You need to hold on for a minute.
Yeah, I'd say everyone needs to slow down. And it's funny because my business provides AI services, but I'd say don't be too fast. I myself, as an IT leader, made some decisions that weren't great decisions in my life. And I purchased a solution or a product that 1 year later, there was a better one that came out. And now we were under a 3-year contract. And I was like, ugh, like this stinks. We're also going to see a lot of AI fallout, not like .com fallout when we had all that fallout, but there's everyone trying to figure it out. There's a lot of funding being dumped into this, and there's going to be a lot of fallout and absorption in the industry. So I would say make sure that you can scale with the AI you're purchasing. It doesn't mean you have to use all the well-known. There's a lot of great companies out there that are going to be sustainable, but slow down. You don't have to make quick decisions with it. And that's why I always talk about the ROI. If we can show an ROI that makes sense, even if something comes out in a year, well, you're making money, you're profitable off of this decision, right? You're more efficient, you're doing what you need to do out of it. So yeah, I was actually just thinking about that the other day, how like and it's not even a specific vertical that needs to hold off. I'd say if there was one, it'd be healthcare. Probably I'd be the slowest just because of the risk to human lives. That if AI misrepresents something or says something wrong, that's the one where I take the slowest approach. But across the board, you don't need to rush into this. AI is going to be rapidly advancing. And again, the conversation we're having now, like, remember the BlackBerry?
Yeah.
Yeah. If we wrote the story about cell phones at the time of BlackBerry, we'd be like, these are the crackberries. These are the most amazing things in the world.
I remember the first phone in the car. Okay, it was like a big bag phone. So yeah, I remember BlackBerries. I'm telling myself now.
And now look at your phone that you have now, right? Like mine's over there. It's not even the same thing. And AI is going to be the same, but there are usable, again, if you start at the data, there are usable applications. And if you use the right people and people who don't force the conversation, and you mentioned something important earlier about my approach. I have a very wide breadth of understanding within the AI and what can work. And I see a lot of businesses that go in with a very specific solution that they offer. And then they try to shove, just force the solution, just force it into them because that's all they've got. That's not me. I don't care if you purchase AI, if you do or you don't, but what I want is you get and you end up with the right AI solution.
I think you walked right into my next question, which was going to be, what makes you more unique than some of your competitors and some of the other companies that are out there? And I think you answered it. From our conversation, you sound your services sound more comprehensive, or you cover a bigger spectrum. Can you help me? Can you explain that to the audience, or what makes you more unique, different, and how does Stratus Shield really fit in and position yourself? What is your value proposition? You're different. I think you're really different. And our conversations of just meeting you, everything it just seems to be different, more unique, more depth, more breadth, and a breath of fresh air. So if you can expand on that for the audience, and this is audio and it is visual, so it's okay if you flail your hands or whatever you want to do. They got you on YouTube, okay?
I might be able to speak without moving my hands, maybe, but
it's good.
It could get crazy. So I like to think that it's my overall approach to technology. And I think this comes from my background as an IT leader. And I would have companies come in that had a good product, but it didn't do everything that I needed it to do. And their ask was for me to adapt my business to fit the limitations of their technology. And that used to drive me crazy. And it's like, no, we can't change our business because you can't do X, Y, and Z. Like, change your product. Like, that's what you need to do, or we're not a good fit. And that's been my approach and how I approach technology conversations or AI conversations. I never want a business to have to adapt their business practices to fit limitations of technology. What I want to do is I want to find the technology that fits into their business now. And again, we talk about growth patterns and how where businesses are going to go, and it's future proof for changes as they continue to grow, as the technology grows as well. So that's really, I think, in my mind, that sums up that approach. And what does make me unique is I'm not a one throat to, let's call it a one bag to pack. That's probably nicer than the one throat to choke, but a one bag to pack type
I was
of-
wondering where you was going with that, but anyways, go ahead.
and I'm doing the hand motion. I'm not a one throat,
I know you now a little bit, so I'm okay.
but yeah, we've got to be diverse, and this conversation is diverse. And again, when you look at technology, and I always use this example, if you install a phone and for years back in the when I was doing more phone systems, if you install a phone system and you don't know how your network runs, well, now with how voice runs over the network, it's going to be choppy, it's going to be delayed, you're going to have all sorts of lag and issues with it. So why not understand what the network is and how well the network is running too? Because there's an impact with technology with everything we do. And even with AI, it might slow systems down if you're depending on how you're hosting it. Of course, you can use Azure and some other applications in the cloud that are faster, but what's the impact on the business? What's the impact on the performance? Let's look at all these things and not just implement technology for the sake of implementing technology.
I want to ask this, and I want to ask it, we're going to ask it now instead of waiting for offline, because I really want to know, since I've come through. Now we're going way back before the airline industry. I can go back to communications and into the Baby Bell system service, AT&T, the divestitures, all that world with the different phones and the companies and everything else. And you said something there. So with AI, and where some of the systems are, because you still have some organizations with some really antiquated systems hanging around.
Yes, you do.
And then you got these nonprofits around where they still holding on to some old phone systems. And then in healthcare, the doctor's offices, some of the hospitals may have upgraded, but you have a lot of, healthcare that's really sitting in the old world. They really didn't do too much in Web 2. Here we come into Web 3.
Yeah.
So when you look at the different systems that are at the different stages, from the AI standpoint, is there one approach better than another, or do you just start over? Is there a way to transition through, or does it really you just want to see the numbers and take it from there? It seems like you got to know the infrastructure. Did I ask you a question?
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely when looking at phone systems, you definitely need to understand the infrastructure now, because we're not running off PRIs and B1 lines, which are old methodologies of running phone line or phone calls through phone systems. So these legacy systems, they're out there, but as you're converting over, first, I wouldn't rip and replace. I would find a solution, and there's ones out there that you can go with it. So it's not, again, rip and replace means I have to uninstall everything and get all new phones, but let's take care of the accounting department first and priorities first. So let's be methodical with how we roll out phone systems. And then when it comes to AI, it depends. I mean, really with AI, that reporting is good with just typical phone systems, but really when it comes to conversational AI, that's really the main use case, and that's in a call center environment or a contact center environment, so larger call volumes and things like that. In that case, then it's reimagining and repurposing your employees to do something more efficient and better, and using AI to take the other calls. But yeah, any kind of, especially with phone systems, you have to take a methodical approach. You have to understand what's out there, but you probably need to really be looking at it, especially if you're running legacy systems that have retired hardware, and you're still going on eBay to find a phone, a phone when it goes out, or you don't have other like SMS and some other kind of features that help you be more available. Then yeah, I would say when it comes to phone systems, a very methodical approach, but I would address it, and I mean quickly, because you are missing out on some efficiencies if you're still using legacy phone systems.
So your nonprofits, I'm going to focus on the nonprofits for a minute, because they need a lot of insight, education, opportunity, funding, but the deliverables, especially for disaster relief and, depending on which arena they're in, and all the disasters that are taking place globally. When you look at the nonprofits, and AI, and they have all these older systems, and they're starting now to look at the future. When do they call you? When they first start assessing and looking for, request for a proposal? When does somebody actually call you and need your assistance? When do you step in? When is that time period?
Great question. And for me, it's the earlier, the better you're into it. And here's why. I have a unique model where I don't charge for my consulting services. So when I go in and I help a company out, I don't charge. You could kind of see it more like, I guess like a broker for auto insurance. You don't pay the broker, right? You pay you pay the State Farm or whoever it is. Now I'm State Farm or whatever, now
Okay.
I'm bringing in State Farm, but yeah, but whoever it is, let's go Geico. So I don't just go with one. So whoever you're
Okay.
going with, you need to, I take a unique approach because backing up there, I don't charge. So when you bring me in, I'm able to say, what are you trying to do? What are we trying to accomplish? What is your budget? And then I have access, if you're talking about phone systems, to over 30 phone vendors that I know how they work, what they do, where they're proficient at, who works best with nonprofits, and then I place them correctly. Right. And that's my approach. And so that's why earlier the better. And that's whether it's AI, cybersecurity, or wherever it is. When you bring me in, I'm going to be able to help you navigate this landscape. I'm going to be able to help you make the best decision. And again, my consulting services don't cost anything.
Boy, that's really interesting. So, what is it that I didn't ask that you'd like to share with everybody, and how do they reach you?
I mean, I guess just this has been a fascinating conversation. First of all, it's been a blast, Donna, for sure. And you're probably gonna have to edit some stuff out. So hopefully,
Well, that last word you said, I'm learning that you can't have certain words on YouTube.
yeah, that is definitely one. So yeah, if you need help with editing software, I can help you.
I'm good.
But no, this is a fun time right now. AI is a fun conversation to have. I think businesses, again, they're really wondering what they can do. And especially if you don't have a full C-suite of CIOs, CTOs, and all these other people to help you out make these decisions, businesses are really stuck right now on how do you implement AI, what's relevant and what's not. So let's have, for me, I'm just opening up, let's have the conversation, just jump on. I have different, they're not long 30-minute training where I go over a lot of what we talked about, but how to look at it, how to approach it, how the framework of AI works in business for you to see if it's right for you. And we can just overall have a fun conversation about it. And if anything, it's educational. And don't be scared to ask questions. But the biggest thing too, and I've talked on my series, the AI Insights Executive Brief, I talked to CTOs, CIOs, the C-suites, and they all say, embrace it, but learn about it. So you understand. So embrace, learn, educate, all these things. And that's what I'd leave with. You can, of course, find me on LinkedIn. That's a great way. My website, stratashield.ai, is a great way to get a hold of me. And yeah, I'm never going to turn down a conversation. I love having them.
I think this has been an exciting conversation. I forgot to ask you one question I usually ask everybody. What's on your wish list for the future that you don't see happening now, or what really concerns you that you hope is handled? What keeps you up at night, or what is it that you really think in the future or that concerns you that really needs to be talked about, managed, or embraced or adopted? Is there anything that comes top of mind that we need to keep top of mind and keep a raised eyebrow on?
Yeah, and I don't know if it'd be a concern, but it's a use case I think about that'd be very valuable, and I think it would save lives, and that's using blockchain in healthcare and combining AI and blockchain in healthcare. Because if you think about it, all my healthcare records I don't own. I have to go to 40, 50, and throughout my life, probably hundreds, if not thousands of different providers trying to dig up healthcare records. But if we were able to decentralize them, put them into some blockchain blockchain format, then we could give access to our records when we need it, and we would own our health records. And that, in my mind, especially if you look at, so my wife works in geriatric care for one of the major hospitals out here as a physician's assistant, and for Humana. And one of the major problems is for her is even finding all their past histories and being able to find all this stuff. But if we can, again, decentralize that from ownership to the hospitals and the medical community and have ownership and give permissions to it, I just think that would be phenomenal. It would help healthcare in the US. It would help geriatric care. And it would help us all to be able to really just, again, control our data and be able to get the data to the people we need.
And on that note, I really like to thank you for having you as a guest on Pivoting to Web3 podcast. You walked right into what I really love about blockchain technology, the benefits in pivoting to Web3. If anybody has any contacts and want to contact me with someone that they know working on a project or in the healthcare field, please contact me at dmitchell at Pivoting to Web3 podcast. That's D Mitchell at Pivoting to Web3 podcast, because I'm really interested, as he said, what's happening in healthcare, what's happening in blockchain technology. And believe me, go ahead and subscribe, like, and share. I've never really solicited this before, but the more subscribes, like, and shares, the bigger the channel and the bigger the guests, and the more we can do a deep dive into some of these conversations that we need to understand, learn, and love. So thanks so much to Benjamin Bowman, and thank you for listening to Pivoting to Web3 podcast. We're shaping tomorrow together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking in the Pivoting to Web3 podcast. Go to pivotingtoweb3podcast.com to download and listen, or Web3 Game Plan to check out the videos. Thank you.